Good evening and good afternoon, good morning, wherever you may be. Welcome to the Geelong Region Soccer Show. It's episode 43, and boy, is it going to be a great episode tonight. My name is Tonchi Prusek. I'm one of your co-hosts for tonight, and introducing my other co-host as well, Steve Curtin. Steve joins us. Steve, good evening.
Good evening, Tonchi. Can you hear me all good, loud and clear, and good vision this week? Everything going well at your end?
Hunky-dory, mate. Couldn't be any better after last week's fiasco, I think it was. And
that's good to hear.
What could we say about last week? Big shout out to Craig Filer, our colleague who jumped in at the deep end and at the last moment. We do appreciate that. But good to have your smiley face back on board, Steve.
It's good to be back. It was big thanks to Craig for stepping in with zero notice as the last minute emergency into the starting 11 last week. But it was quite funny. Some software updates had taken place and I was literally stuck in the green room, and I was actually green in colour, or my background was at least anyway. So it wasn't what I was expecting would happen, but I don't know. Speaking of colour, I've heard that you've actually been compared to a playing card on a bit of a road trip yesterday. Is this true?
Well, do you want to hear the story? I was up in Dalesford.
I think we do. Yeah. I'm sure the audience does.
I went into this bakery, and this guy, charming fella, or woman, or whatever. It was a woman actually, charming lady. She goes to me, "Oh, what's it like to be a draw 4 card from Uno?" And I'm thinking, what the hell are you on about? She said it again. It didn't click to me. And I was wearing a green and gold tracksuit with a blue parka and a red cap. And later on, I realized what she was talking about. I looked very, very colorful indeed. So my job, as I see it, Steve, is to brighten up people's lives. And if I do it either literally or in an entertaining sense, goodness me, I'm happy with that either way, whatever the case may be. But mate,
or perhaps both in this case, perhaps both.
Speaking of bright days, we've got a lot happening on the show tonight. But do tell us what's coming on the show tonight.
Yeah, well, for our focus club tonight, we're going to head out to Fellmongers Road, and it's going to be a chat with a couple of gentlemen from the Breakwater Eagles. So not a club that we've featured in my time on the show before. So I'm really excited to hear what's going on out at Fellmongers Road, out at the White Eagle House. And our two gentlemen on the show there tonight, we've got their head coach of their senior men's team and their vice president as well. So looking forward to having a chat there with Vice President Jim Kontogeorgis and their head coach of their men's squad, Dan Shaw. So they will be on the show tonight following what's going to be a bumper news segment as well, Tonchi.
Indeed it is. And then later on, we'll be also talking about how now memberships are open. The membership scheme, you can become a member and a major and active supporter of the Geelong Region Soccer Show. We launched it last week with amidst a lot of fanfare, and we'll be certainly looking forward to, again, talking about that a little later on in the program. But, mate, without further ado, I think it's about time that we now bring in the news desk, and don't go away.
And welcome to the news desk tonight, and we'll start with the latest information on return to football guidelines from Football Victoria, as we see version 2.1, which came into effect last Thursday. An update on the 2020 competition structures, fee relief and refund proposals have also been sent out to clubs across all community competitions last Thursday, aimed at supporting them to have a safe return to football in 2020. Now, the all-important training news. Now, as it stands now, as of last Thursday, player groups of no more than 20 plus a coach, or the minimum number of support staff reasonably required to run a training activity, may operate in a designated training zone. A training zone must be a minimum of 45 metres by 45 metres, If you're not sure on your distances or your metrics, that's half of a FIFA standard full-size playing pitch.
Mate,
So
we've seen a lot of
good news for clubs there that are getting back into training and double their capacity on each pitch that they have on training nights.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of, if not all of the clubs have gone back to training. So I suppose the hardest part there is the non-contact element, meaning that you can't really have games. And they're saying you can't head the ball, you can't throw the ball in, which is quite contradictory, isn't it? You know, you look at AFL clubs that have started training. Of course, they need their hands. Rugby clubs the same, as you know, that sort of stuff. So it is a little bit contradictory. And today, all the kiddies came back to school. Is someone going to tell me there's going to be social distancing out in the playground? And particularly after what we saw on the weekend with the large protests, there's definitely no social distancing. Steve, will that have an effect, you reckon, like what's happened over the last, say, 48 to 72 hours? Could that have an effect on the way training and or full contact sports are I guess, released in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that the latest version of guidelines, which we can expect, that they seem to come out quite frequently, that they could drop at any time now, and that could come into effect perhaps from next week, where we will see a relaxing and players will be allowed to practice their aerial ability, practice their tackling and so forth. Hopefully that's not too far away. Obviously big numbers out protesting in central Melbourne and all capital cities around Australia on the weekend. And I think for football, well, firstly, it is a shame that Football Victoria's Indigenous round had to be sort of skipped this year because at that time in May there's no football going on. So that is unfortunate. Whether they can reschedule that for later in the season, that might be something they could consider. But also with the big gathering, if Victoria comes out of the next week or so without an increase in cases, and lately it's been so far so good, that could be a really good test case to see that we can actually relax the restrictions across our state to similar levels to perhaps the NT and some of these other states, which we'll touch on later, which actually played football with crowds on the weekend.
Speaking of the Northern Territory, though, the first NPL competition in Australia to go back to competitive games. What happened there? Have you got any results, Steve? Any interesting stories to come out of that?
Yeah, just scrolling down the news feed here, and in news further afield, Australia's top end saw an NPL return on a Friday night with crowds in attendance too. That match was streamed live on YouTube, and even Simon Hill was on the call for the men's match there. So the post-COVID round opener, which was actually round 2, saw the Mindel Aces coming from 3-0 down to win 4-3 over Hellenic. It looked as though Hellenic was going to win 10-0 in the first 20 minutes of this game, but it was a bit of a surprise the way it came, and I think we might have footage there of the late winner, which was scored by the substitute from Mindel Aces.
No, I don't have that.
We haven't got it. No? Okay.
My apologies.
I can push on. Can push on. Now, Hellenic did have take the spoils in the earlier NPLW clash with a 4-1 win over the NT Yappers, which is an all-Indigenous side. And on Saturday, across other results in the NPL Norzone men's, it was Port Darwin 1, Casuarina 3, and Darwin Hearts 1, University Azuri 0. That's just a 6-team league up there.
Well, it's good to see, and across the ditch over in New Zealand, they too have, as of today, released let go of all their restrictions as well. But closer to home, at the moment, after a document was sent out by Football Victoria, or an update last Thursday, and the proposal or the proposed resumption of competitive matches is for the National Premier League Juniors. It's the 27th June, which was revised from an initial 20th of June. For community clubs juniors, which is obviously here in Geelong, and I guess it will be interesting if this is going to happen, because this would be the earliest, I suppose, the 28th of June, which is a Sunday. So I guess games will maybe kick off possibly on a Friday night, possibly on a Saturday. So that is the weekend of the 27th, 28th of June. Now, for the senior competitions, so community club seniors and senior NPL competitions, basically it's saying the weekend of the 10th or the 11th of July. Now, the key date here is going to be, obviously, the Victorian State Government on the 21st of June, what they decide, because that's basically going to make or break it. This is all on the proviso the state government further lifts restrictions. And as we said at the top of the show, a lot will depend what transpires over, I guess, the next 2 weeks. But look, light at the end of the tunnel, Steve. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it's all going to come through with the goods.
We saw Football South Australia today announcing some solid dates as to when they will be returning to their competitions across the over there in Adelaide and beyond. So yeah, it's not far away if things keep progressing with a low number of cases. Testing continues. Fingers crossed that in what will that be? 11 days time, the next announcement will allow us to return to the field for competitive matches here, as we saw so much joy on the faces of people enjoying that football in Darwin on Friday night.
And even closer to home, like I was thankfully privy to a few training sessions that I both witnessed and took part in last week. And the joy on the kids' faces, on the parents' faces, on the players themselves, it's great to see. You know, we still haven't got that concrete date, but at least we can start preparing. At least we can start planning. Now, a major development happened here in Geelong, and it wasn't to do with our code, but it could have massive, massive ramifications, positive for our football code. Steve, is what happened earlier today with regards to the AFL Barwon leagues?
Yeah, so in an announcement at 3 o'clock this afternoon, in news from that other football code in town, the Geelong Football League, the Ballerine Football League, and the Geelong District Football League have announced a joint statement effectively this afternoon that all senior grades of Australian rules football and netball will be called off for 2020 due to issues arising from the COVID-19 pandemic. While their junior competitions are still set to return this year. So big news there. And as you say, some of the ramifications, could be good news for football. The round ball code could be that we do get a bit more coverage in the local media, Tonchi.
Well, I guess also the other thing there is that possibly, and as we've got that there up on screen, so we'll leave that up on screen. That's the from AFL Barwon's Facebook page. The decision includes senior football home and away seasons, so including seniors and reserves for all listed competitions. So that's the BFL, GFL, GDFL. It doesn't talk about juniors, doesn't talk about senior females as well. So I guess the thing here is that if soccer, football, plays its cards right, we could have a massive, massive profile boost locally. The local news outlets, well, they can't really report about anything other than soccer. So we're going to get massive. You'd expect that we'd get quite a fair bit of coverage in the local press. Unfortunately, Steve, we will not be the only media then covering football in Geelong, the Geelong Region Soccer Show, which I'm quite happy with that. I'm 1,000% happy if we are not the only ones covering soccer here in Geelong. And the other thing is there could be a lot of particularly reserve players or footy players and even netballers that might turn around and say, well, if there's going to be no competition, I've always wanted to try my hand at soccer, or why not play, men's Division 3 with a couple of mates or men's Division 2, and it has happened in years gone by. I know of a handful of people that have decided to play soccer, football, because of mates, and ended up playing playing the round ball as opposed to the oval ball. So it could happen, mate. It could happen. We never know.
Well, you never know, and it could be mutually beneficial too, because those players will want to keep themselves occupied, keep fit, keep healthy, keep mixing with friends, and playing social sport. And also, some of the local soccer clubs might need extra numbers. They might have lost players because of the
Possibly.
pandemic. So
Speaking,
perhaps everyone could be a winner there. There is the chance, I think, that some of these leagues, and I think I failed to mention the CDFL. I think that's the Colac District League. As well as one of those leagues not going ahead. But they may be looking to play some sort of Lightning Premiership
yeah.
competition, perhaps on reading between the lines. So look, they might still be occupied, but
No,
I think the message would be from our Geelong soccer community that the door's open to come and experience soccer or football and
yeah.
enjoy it, and you might just have found your new sport that you stick with.
Now, what's happening in our neighbourhood? Let's take a look at a special news item on Win News Ballarat, or Win Ballarat News, that happened earlier today. So it'll give us an insight into what is happening just up the Midland Highway.
Sebastopol Vikings says it's been inundated with calls and messages from players and parents asking if and when a season will go ahead.
Looks like we'll have sides in if not all of the junior age groups, at least most of the age groups.
It's planning to field 12 senior and junior teams this year.
A lot of the kids are really keen. The same with into the senior age groups as well. The players are really keen, both at BDSA level and state league level. So yeah, it looks like we're going to be business as normal.
But other sides aren't as lucky. Buninyong Soccer Club says it won't be fielding a competitive side for the first time in 10 years, following a decline in players due to a lack of facilities. But the club says it hopes to rebuild next year. It comes after the Ballarat District League reached out to clubs to gauge expressions of interest to see how many teams each club intends to enter this year.
So we returned to training last Tuesday and had good numbers back. So from all accounts, our senior men's, and we should also have an under 17s team.
The league has set a rough date of June 28 as a possible start to a junior season, while seniors has been slated for July 12, but federal and state governments will have the final say.
Now that we've got a date in sight that hopefully we can get a season started, the morale's high. There's plenty of messages and phone calls that going around.
George Booth, Win News.
Well, there you go. So it's an interesting point there of some clubs are going to look likely in Ballarat will be doing well. Other clubs may well struggle. So is that something that possibly may be happening here in Geelong? Steve, what's your opinion?
With clubs potentially dropping out?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure if any
Not
clubs
necessarily clubs, maybe teams. Maybe some teams will struggle to field numbers, whereas other clubs will do really well. So I guess the moral of the story is there, Ballarat, certainly the local competition, obviously, like we've been saying all along, depending on what happens over the next 2 weeks, they plan on pushing ahead. And I think, as I said, here in Geelong, if we can do the same, we can really capitalise on some of the opportunities that are presenting themselves to the local football community. But look, from all accounts that I can see, there will be, individuals here and there, and hence, maybe individual teams that will struggle to field teams. That by and large, my gut feeling is telling me that the majority of people will want to be back. But it will be interesting to see how one of those clubs, Breakwater Eagles, is affected, because we'll be talking to Jim Kontogeorgis from Breakwater Eagles very, very shortly. But before we do that, Steve, any other interesting news?
Oh, just on that last article, one thing's for sure, in that good bit of coverage from Win TV Ballarat, that the pitch there at Sebastopol Vikings is looking $1 million. So well done to the Ballarat Council up there.
Yeah, and look, I just look at that and I wish Geelong, just generally, Geelong had its own TV station, but I guess we're too close to Melbourne, so we're kind of neglected. The only time you hear about Geelong on the TV is when something bad happens, and it seems to have happened quite a fair bit in recent times. But apart from that, you don't get too much positive, do you?
Yeah, no, I miss I grew up playing my soccer in my early days in Bendigo, and yeah, having the local news on you'd get the highlights and interviews with players on a Tuesday night coverage. It would be quite good, and you'd
Yeah.
have a laugh at training. If one of your teammates got their head on the TV, it'd be quite good. Just some other news, Tonchi, we haven't gone over yet. Also, was part of those return to football guidelines. Some other good news: sporting clubs that operate a cafe, a restaurant, a fast food store, cafeteria, canteen, or licensed premises within its facility may reopen with limited dine-in arrangements, provided it strictly adheres to the restrictions on hospitality venues. These include, but are not limited to, only 20 patrons per enclosed space, the 4 square metre density rule, no more than 6 persons per table, and no service of alcohol unless the person has ordered a meal. Detailed guidelines of the requirements for food and drink facilities to reopen, including for takeaway service, which is obviously important at most of our local clubs, the takeaway window. Those details are available on the Business Victoria website. In advance of opening, clubs must consult the hospitality industry guidelines for COVID-19 and carry out the actions required. So a few hoops to jump through there, but nonetheless, some positive news for clubs that can sort of get operating again with some of their off-field operations as well. So that's looking quite good. Other news, just quickly summing up, North Geelong Warriors have been successful in the grant application in the Change Our Game Community Activation Grant Program. The club will receive a state government grant to help it promote gender equality. And that grant program is still open, so clubs keep that in mind. Hopefully some other clubs have also submitted their applications across the Geelong region. Some of the other grant programs that are available include the Emergency Sport and Recreation Equipment Grant, the National Sport Organisations and Professional Clubs Coronavirus Short-Term Survival Funding Program, the Community Sports Infrastructure Stimulus Program, and the Community Sports Sector Short-Term Survival Package. For more information for any of our clubs looking to undertake one of those grant applications, sport.vic.gov.au, hit the grants page to find out more. Also, Geelong Rangers are giving you the chance to join their VIP club for $100, become a key ring holder thanks to Mid-City Trophies, and you'll get into the Steam Pocket Hamper weekly members draw. You'll also get one free drink every week of the season, reduced prices on all of your drinks, and access to the Burger and Barrel Club event in 2021. The offer runs until the end of the 2021 season. So just another example there, Tonchi, of one of our local clubs doing something a little bit innovative to help navigate their way out of the current pandemic climate.
Now, I want to talk about that. We had the Rangers on last week, and we spoke to Lisa Brooks, the secretary, who made a very, very valid point, and it really hit home with a lot of our viewers and a lot of the clubs as well, is the importance of strategic planning. And it's also when you're undertaking strategic planning and implementing those plans, one of the things that you generally do is think outside the box. How can the club improve? And that is one real tangible way the Rangers have undertaken that, thinking outside the square. Coming up with the idea of $100 key rings. And you get all these entitlements as well. But most importantly, what you're doing is you're helping your club. Now, if there's 100 members, now every club should be able to draw upon 100 people. Now, not necessarily players, not necessarily the actual members, but it could be extended family, it could be neighbours, it could be workmates of people that are involved with that club. And with 100, let's say 100 people that take up this offer of $100 key rings, that's $10,000, Steve. Now, in this day and age, when clubs are not getting any money, they're not making anything from canteens or whatever the case may be, $10,000 goes a long, long way. So the Rangers, good on them. Fantastic work there, thinking outside the square. And look, I hope that other clubs as well are engaging with their own members and doing exactly the same. Now, we're going to take a little bit of a break. When we return, we're hoping that either Jim Kontogeorgis or Dan Shaw will be joining us. At the moment, they were both in the green room at one stage, and they've just gone. They've just disappeared. I think they've either gone for a drinks break or a.
I think we might have rabbled on for too long, Tonchi.
We may put them to sleep, but hopefully they'll be back. When we come back, we'll we'll come back very, very shortly. So whatever you do, don't go away. You're watching and tuning into the Geelong Region Soccer Show. It's episode 43. Back in a second. Welcome back to the Geelong Region Soccer Show here on Facebook Live. It's on the Geelong Region Soccer News Facebook page. Now, Steve, we haven't got our guests. We're still waiting on our guests to come, but there's a big war looming. There is a big war looming. The gauntlet has been, what did they say?
It's been thrown down.
It's been thrown down, and we want you, the fans, the followers of the Geelong Region Soccer News Facebook page, to come on board in a big, big way. It's Geelong versus Western Melbourne, Western Districts. And Steve, how can all of our hundreds and thousands of followers get on board?
Yep, so a YouTube subscription battle is on in earnest between the YouTube channels of this very show, the Geelong Region Soccer Show, and its sister show, the Football Out West program. With Football Out West currently, a little earlier this afternoon, leading 21-18. So get over to YouTube, search Geelong Region Soccer Show, and give the subscribe button a smash there to get our show back on top of the leaderboard.
That's right. We are a very patriotic mob down here in Geelong, and we want to show the folk from the big smoke that we can do things a lot better. So if you haven't already, jump on the go to the our YouTube channel, the Geelong Region Soccer Show YouTube channel, and make sure that you join on. And we need everyone to join on. And well, mate, if they do that, join on. It just means more people are tuning into our program, whether it be by Facebook Live, whether it be via YouTube. The more people, obviously, that are tuning in, the more we're getting this wonderful, wonderful game exposed, and more people are finding out about our brilliant game. So, we certainly want as many people to jump on board the YouTube channel battle, if you like. Now, speaking of which, now people can speak. So that's obviously one thing, how we're asking for your support as well. But we're also asking for people to become members of the show. And how can they become members of the show, Steve?
Yeah, so if you're thinking about supporting the show that you enjoy watching every Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, you can sign up and become an official member of the show. And to do that, you have to go and visit our Patreon page. Patreon is a new initiative for us as a show. It's a common platform used by many podcasts. I'd say if you listen to any kind of podcast that's privately funded, you probably dare say you probably heard mention of the Patreon page. Our page is over at www.patreon, that's patreon.com/Geelong Region Soccer Show, or just bang that into a search. I'm sure it will come up. And yeah, you can support our show. You can choose from a gold, silver, or bronze style of membership. And every supporter will help produce a even better content and better show, Tonchi.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we've got 3. And we've also got the bronze membership as well. So, look, if we can, get people on board that way. Just helping out if you don't want to commit to a membership, say, for example, a gold, silver, or bronze membership, you can still just make a donation. So we're hoping to raise money where we can get some quality equipment and to really, really take this show to a whole new level. And that is the plan. Now, Steve, we've got someone joining us on the show. He's the vice president of Breakwater Eagles, and it's an absolute pleasure to have Jim Kontogeorgis joining us. Jim, how are you? Oh, I'll just unmute you there, mate. I've just unmuted you. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Much better, yeah. How are you, Jim? How's things with you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Just getting through this COVID-19 stuff. So we've been back to training now this is our third week.
Yeah.
And obviously we've put things in place to make sure that we can train down here.
Well, speaking of the COVID-19, I guess the pandemic that has swept the world, how has the suspension of football over the last few months during the pandemic been for you personally, first of all, and also in regards to your role as club president at Breakwater? And please don't say you've enjoyed the break from football.
That's vice. Look, it's had its good and bad. Obviously,
Yeah.
I enjoy coming down and training and playing and all that sort of stuff that we do down here, and obviously running the club, I obviously enjoy as well. So, but being away from the club, you miss that, and you realise that as well, especially when something like this comes up. But it's been a good part as well, where we've been able to be at home with family as well, so catching up on stuff.
Steve, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, Jim, Steve here. I hope you can hear me nice and clearly.
Yeah, I can hear.
Ah, good, very good. Looking at the club and the committee, how was the club shaping up for the 2020 season before everything came to a halt back in March?
Look, pretty exciting thing happened to us last year. We ended up signing a senior coach. His name's Dan Shaw. And from then on, we started putting things in place, practice matches and all that sort of stuff. Players are getting fit, changing the culture down here as well. So we were all raring to go. We ended up having an Ffa Cup match as well. We thought this year, let's go and do that. We ended up playing Main, and in the last minute of the game, they ended up winning 2-1. So,
how was that experience, though?
Absolutely.
Just overall.
Fantastic. I mean, Dan brought up the idea, why don't we go and do it? We sort of went, what, are you crazy? But he supported in his decision there. And then, we ended up playing. The players, what an experience for them as well. We almost got through. So something we'll think about next year as well.
Brilliant. Speaking of next year, I guess the whole purpose of appointing Dan as coach was to really set the wheels in motion for bringing Breakwater back to the glory days. Because for those that are maybe too young to remember, Breakwater Eagles, they were a powerhouse. You guys were a real powerhouse locally, and I think it was the coach of one of the winning teams, Chris McMahon. It was just his birthday the other day. And how old's Chris? He's probably about 1,005 years old now. But all jokes aside, it seems like such a long time ago that Breakwater was such a powerhouse locally. But in recent years, it's really struggled. With Dan's appointment, is that the first of many, I guess, turning points for the club?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, with Dan's experience, we're hoping to change that around. We've got a lot of young kids coming through. So I think over the next 5 years, with the young kids that we do have, the club's going to be looking really good. And we're quietly confident that we will, be up there again.
And Jim, just on the juniors there, what are the numbers like at the club for juniors, and sort of how many teams of the club currently have through the various age ranks, do you know?
We've got under 7s. We've got a couple of under 9 groups, under 11s. We've got an under 12 girls. We've got one under 15s team. We've got one senior women's side, and we've also got the 2 senior men's side as well. So not too bad for our area. Roughly got about 120 members. So yeah.
If it wasn't for the COVID crisis, Jim, would the numbers have been significantly higher, lower, or thereabouts from last year?
I think higher. And we'll see how we go. Hopefully, with the decision today with the AFL side, I'm quietly confident we'll see some AFL footballers coming, footballers coming through. So
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think some of those guys might come over. Why not? Keep fit, the rest of it.
Especially in where Breakwater Eagles is, it's such a strong AFL catchment. I'm not sure how many, but there's probably about a half a dozen AFL clubs and netball clubs just in the close proximity. Does that make it really, really hard when you're coming up against, you've got Buckley's just down the corner, and I'm not talking about Buckley's Chance, but Buckley's the gaming venue just right next door to the White Eagle Club.
Been rehearsing that one.
Yeah. Does it make things really difficult for the demographic which you try and attract?
I think so. It is a real stronghold with the AFL, and I think they do a really good job with their juniors as well. And I think that's something that we sort of need to, with soccer, that we really need to focus on. And is it the cost that inhibits families from getting their young kids here? I don't know, but I think a bit of help is probably going to be a bit handy with FB. So
yeah. Hey guys, just hold everything. I've just come up with a really, really good joke. Listen to this. What are the chances of AFL football being played in Geelong? Buckley's or none? Okay, that's the end of my comedy career. Steve, you've probably got something smart to ask Jim here.
I don't know where I can go to from there. Sorry, Jim. Does the club have any specific goals surrounding women's football?
Sorry, say that again, Steve.
Does the club have any goals surrounding women's football?
Oh, look, our first goal was to actually get a team together. So we did have a team a few years ago. They ended up leaving and went and played for Drysdale. And what we've done last year, we ended up getting a team together. And this year, again, we've got the senior women there, and we've got around about 18 players. So
great, good numbers.
And some of the girls haven't played before, and they've really trained well, and their skills are getting better. So we're hoping for a good year this year. So it'll be exciting to see how we go there.
Okay, well I'll try and be serious now, mate. You're based at the White Eagle House, which is one of only 3, I think, privately owned football grounds in Geelong. What are some of the pros and cons? What are some of the positives and negatives of playing out of a privately owned venue such as the White Eagle House?
Oh, I think the pros are obviously, we don't have to put any cost towards lighting, water, and things like that. That's all provided by the White Eagle House.
Yep.
Some of the cons for us is that obviously when it comes to funding, it sort of puts us out. We sort of can't go and get some of that funding, or we're not eligible towards that. But obviously, we can work with White Eagle. We'll sit down and work out. We don't need a third party there telling us what to do. We can sort of work with White Eagle and get things done. So.
Yeah. Speaking of the funding, last year there was a well-documented case of the White Eagle Club, so the Polish social club there, going or applying for extra gaming machines, and if that had to come about, they were prepared to invest something like, I think it was like $2-3 million into the football side of things, including a synthetic pitch, possibly a third pitch, better floodlighting, etc., etc. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, whichever side of the fence you're on, that got knocked back. Back to the drawing board, obviously. what's the latest with regards to, that master plan at White Eagle Club? Is the club, i.e. Breakwater Eagles or the White Eagle Club, are they looking at alternative ways to attract that funding? Have any of the local, state or federal governments come to the party and said, all right, since you can't have the gaming machines, we might come and help in some other way? What's the latest with regards to that?
I think the latest is that they're going away and trying to work out a reduced number of pokie machines. I think some of it's been sold off, but yeah, look, I'm not exactly 100% sure where they're sort of going to go. So obviously they'll be trying to exhaust any avenue, but at the moment I think it's tucked away and obviously trying to work through that.
That's a shame. It would have been good to have that. Jesus, synthetic pitch, better lighting. Wow, new change rooms. We'll live in hope, Jim. We can live in hope.
It would have been absolutely fantastic for us, and we were all excited about the possibility of having that sort of facility. But it didn't happen. But it was also a facility that the actual community here was, anyone could come in and use as well, schools and like that. So it was that benefit as well. So. But yeah, obviously it wasn't the flavour with obviously with the pokies in the area and the demographics. So,
Steve,
well, no doubt there is a genuine shortage of community football infrastructure in the southern half of Geelong. It's something we sort of dwell on the show regularly. Given that there has been government money going into now into some of the privately owned grounds, like out at North Geelong Warriors and Bell Park. Given that these clubs they provide an asset to the community, and that's the reason that funding is now going into them. You would hope that that perhaps that there might be funding available for the Breakwater Eagles to work on that upgrade at some point, perhaps.
Yeah, I think it'll happen. I think it has to change. I mean, if all these other clubs are, getting better facilities and players can play at ours, and it's not right. I think it has to be fair. Everyone should be getting a bit of the money as well.
Yeah, mate. Looking further afield, as far as you talked about, vision plans, next 5 years and what you're not. As far as the senior men's team, do you harbour any aspirations of maybe one day jumping up to the state league competitions? We've seen Barwon, Deakin, some of those clubs do that in recent years. Is Breakwater Eagles a club that down the track would like to eventually do that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think. If we sort of had the facilities, I think as well, that would have been on top of our list. But it probably, without getting that funding from the White Eagle House and that proposal, I think it's sort of, it's probably put back a bit. But we'll see how we go. I mean, yeah, we'd love to sort of be have a state comp, but I think we need a few more grounds and stuff like that to achieve that. Plus, getting more players, so we've got to be able to attract them as well.
And I guess the key there is facilities, obviously having adequate facilities, because, I mean, we've got, eight teams in state league competitions in Geelong, so the competition for just securing the best players is also pretty tough at that level, isn't it?
Yep, that's right. That's
yeah. Right. Now, we're trying to get a hold of Dan Shaw, the coach of the senior team, but we can't seem to be getting a hold of him. But in the meantime, Jim, can you explain to us a little bit about the process that was involved in getting Dan on board?
It was very simple, actually. Dan contacted us and showed us his credentials, and then we sat down and had a meeting, and I think in a matter of a few minutes, we appointed him the position. So we were excited that he actually came. He came to us. So and that it was surprising to all of us.
Well, that's pretty good. That's always a good thing to have, that he came to see you guys, and then. But I mean, he's a highly credentialed coach. He coached in the NPL juniors for 2 years with the Melbourne Knights, and obviously knows his stuff. And I think one of the things, just speaking to him off air, he said he couldn't. They've moved down to Geelong, is that right, or something like that now?
Yeah.
And the fact that he couldn't commit to the longer NPL season now, the NPL junior season, which is effectively a 40-week a year commitment, turned out really good for Breakwater Eagles.
Yeah, definitely for us. I mean, we're quietly confident with the season going ahead. So,
will it go ahead, Jim? What's your gut feeling telling you?
I think it will. Is it going to be a full season? Not sure. Finals, there probably has to be something at the end of it. But look, our players are just happy to get back out there and play some matches. So, and I think that's probably the same with a lot of community clubs. Obviously enjoy getting out there and playing football. So, I think it'll go ahead.
And I guess Breakwater Eagles is one of those venues we talk about that is a football-specific venue. So if it has to go into October or into November or even into December, as far as you guys are concerned, not a problem.
Yeah, it wouldn't be an issue here. We don't have any cricket or anything like that. So, our ground, we would be able to host other teams as well. So, yeah, we don't have the cricket to worry about. So.
And Steve, that's something we talked about right at the start of the pandemic, wasn't it? That, maybe, and this is thinking outside the square, maybe if the season is pushed further into the year, that we'll be able to then do, I guess, what AFL uses as a term, ground rationalisation, where clubs such as maybe Barwon is one example that comes to mind, who might be affected by the cricket season, they'd be able to play their games at some of the adjoining grounds or facilities. So that's certainly something to look forward to. Let's turn our attention to the women's, Jim. Last year, as you mentioned, it was their first year, so a lot of ladies played that hadn't played before, which is fantastic to see. It's been a real drive for the last couple of years to try and get a female team up, and thankfully the Eagles were able to get the female team up last year. Now, on the field, the team did struggle. So in Division 2, out of 13 teams, the team finished 12th, but they did record 2 wins, which is great. This year, what was it looking like? Firstly, before the COVID interruption. I call it the COVID interruption because that's what it was. It was just a damn disruption. How were things looking before COVID came along? And was there a coach appointed to this year's team?
Yeah, the coach is Steve, our president. He was a coach last year, so he's doing it again this year. So that part of it was covered. But yeah, well, look, we've got some new girls that have come through as well. So it should be an exciting year. Hopefully, we can get up the ladder a bit. But I think there'll be some more wins this year. So look. I've got Dan beside me.
Well, why didn't you tell us? Here we are struggling to find questions to ask you, and Dan's right next to you. There you go, Jim. Right. Red card. You get the red card.
No worries, that's okay. I'll take it any day.
No, seriously, all jokes aside, thank you very much for joining us, Jim. A real pleasure chatting to you and getting to know a club that we don't normally have the pleasure of getting to know. So thank you very, very much for your time, Jim.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Jim Kontogeorgis, the Vice President of the Breakwater Eagles, joining us. So I really, really appreciate his time and thank you very much. Now, joining us on the line, as the subtitles quickly change from Jim Kontogeorgis to Dan Shaw. Dan, how are you, mate? And welcome to the Geelong Region Soccer Show.
Yeah, very good. And thanks for having me on, guys.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Dan, tell us about how you've spent the last 3 months. Have you discovered any new hobbies in the downtime from football?
Look,
I hear you're a bit of a guitar player. Is that true?
I gave the guitar a go. I won't say I'm much of a player. I've started kicking the round ball, but yeah, there's definitely no career in guitar for me. So I think I'll stick with the football.
That's what every Breakwater Eagles player, no doubt, will be very, very happy to hear. Now, speaking about your career in coaching, let's talk a little bit about that, because where did you play football? We mentioned with Jim just recently that you last 2 years you spent in the NPL junior system with a very, very highly regarded club, the Melbourne Knights. Ex-National Soccer League club and such a developer of fine young talent. Where did you start playing, or did you play anywhere?
Yeah, so briefly about myself is one of my daughters, Ashley, was playing and still plays, and because of that, I decided to get involved and I played a little bit over at Bacchus Marsh in the Ballarat League. From that, I saw probably a chance to jump into coaching and undertook my C licence and moved into coaching with what was the Ballarat Eureka Strikers. They're the girls team, which is now part of Ballarat City. An opportunity came with Melbourne Knights. I jumped on board with that and probably went there thinking I knew everything under the sun about football, and found I knew very little. And Melbourne Knights, I can't thank them enough. They don't just develop their players; they invest in their coaches. And from spending a couple of years with the Knights, I decided to move to Geelong and take this opportunity with Breakwater.
And tell us about that step into joining Breakwater. What was it that got you down to Fellmongers Road into the red and white jersey there, or coaching jacket at least?
Yeah, definitely. So I reached out. I contacted before I moved here. I contacted the club and they asked to meet up. I didn't know a lot about them at the time, so I did a little bit of research. I wasn't sure where I was going to coach, at what level. I sat down, had a meeting with Jim and Steve and Richie, and probably within 30 minutes, we all had discussed where we saw the club and how we're going to get there, and how I could assist with that. And I left here with the senior job, and that was it. It was all full steam ahead from there.
And one of the plus sides too, you wouldn't have had to change your colours from coming from Knight Stadium.
Red, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit smaller stadium, but no, smaller crowd.
Now, Dan, we spoke with Jim earlier, and we highlighted that the Breakwater Eagles, going back 15, 20 years ago, was such a powerhouse of the local competition, maybe even as far back as 10 years ago. But things have really, really slipped into somewhat oblivion, that you could almost say. Last year, the senior team was finished bottom of Division 2 out of a 9-team competition. And the seconds, or the reserves team, I guess, finished 13th out of 14 teams in Division 3 men's. Now, that's really sad to see where a once great club such as Breakwater Eagles have plummeted. Firstly, what was the plan for this year? Where were the Eagles going to play? I mean, would they have been relegated to Division 3, or would they have stayed up in Division 2, or was there special consideration being made to play in Division 1? Where were the Eagles going to fly this year?
Yeah, we're looking at staying in Div 2, having the Div 2 and the Div 3 team this year. Mm-hmm. And we set pretty lofty heights. We need to get back to where Breakwater was, and not just get to Div 1, but to go back to being a powerhouse at Div 1. And I think this year was all about taking that step. So getting the team in Div 2 ready to jump into Div 1 and getting promotion.
And how was the senior squad shaping up prior to the shutdown? Has there been any new boom recruits to the club or anything like that?
Yeah, certainly. We've brought in quite a few players. We've been quite lucky with the players that we've brought in. There's been several that we've actually brought into the club that have they come here, and we haven't had to promise them anything except for train with us and see whether you like it. And the wonderful thing is, all the players that come here, they train a little bit and they go, I want to stay. I can see what you're building, and I want to be a part of it, which is probably it's fantastic.
Now, we got some photos there of a game. It was a practice game played earlier in the season, and that was against Leopold, FC Leopold. And look, tell us a bit about that game, because the end result seemed really, really good. Like, I think it was a 1-1 draw. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, and looking at a lot of the players, they look like a lot younger than some of the players, or a lot of the players in last year's squads. You had quite a fair few golden oldies running around, which is good to see. But it's good to see also a lot of the young players coming up through the ranks. I venture to say majority of these players would have probably been in Breakwater's under-17 team last year.
Yeah, and I think the benefit for me is I'm coming into a club where a lot of these young kids have been playing, young men now, they've been playing seniors for the last year or two, and really had to work hard. And I'm coming in where it's quite a young team. They've had the experience of playing a couple of seasons up. So with a few new recruits coming in to support them, things are looking really bright.
Yeah. Sorry, Steve, you were saying?
Together with that would take charge of the third division squad on match day, and you take charge of the second division squad each week, that sort of thing.
Oh, did Dan? Did you not hear that, Steve? Can you say that again?
Oh no, I was just seeing what the coaching setup is like there. Have you got like an assistant that would you'd work together, and they would take charge of the third division squad on a weekend, and you would take charge of the second division squad?
Yeah. So good news here is you spoke to Jim before. Jim's actually going to have the thirds, and we work quite close with all the coaches. We want to build a culture here where players at a junior age understand how the seniors play and can work all the way through. So when you've got an under 12 and they're looking at the seniors, they're not going, well, this is totally different. They understand it when they get to 13, 14, 15. If they're good enough to be flooded into the seniors, which I think is really important,
yeah,
and the style that we play and can jump straight into that. So as coaches, we've got Jim here, we've got Steve with the senior women. We all work together really close with the one goal, and that is getting Breakwater back up to winning ways.
And since you've come on board, and obviously the word has got around that Breakwater have got, quite a well-credentialed, highly experienced coach such as yourself on board, has there been a lot of interest, and particularly even over this COVID disruption period, has there been a lot of players from maybe other clubs, or some of the players that haven't played for a few years, actually knocking on the door and saying, look, yeah, we're interested in coming back, if not this season, maybe next season?
Yeah. So we've had interest. Some players have come and had a good chat with me, had a bit of a run. They're with other clubs, but potentially coming back next year, and others have come back this year. We have picked up some amazing players in the off-season. I probably don't have enough time to go through all the recruits we have. But,
do you want mention and by all means, we'd love to hear some of the names that are making White Eagle Club their home. Yep.
Well, we got one we got back that's quite a young guy. Dan Lavelle came back to the club from playing with the Geelong in the NPL, and anyone that's watched Dan play, he's amazing to play. He's kind of one of those players that sometimes when you're coaching, you forget you're coaching, you just want to watch.
Yep.
We brought back, we got Darcy Nichols, who was playing at Geelong Rangers in the State 2 reserves. So he turned up, wasn't sure whether he was going to be able to commit. After a few training sessions, he wanted to stay on board, and what a difference players like that makes when you bring them in.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Yeah.
We brought in a couple of guys we found by pure luck that I have to shout out to is Josh and Ian, a father and son that moved to Geelong, and we were lucky enough that I got a phone number. I called them. They came down, a first club in kind of thing. And I couldn't ask for more, not just their experience on the ball, but their leadership, especially Ian here. He knows how to be a leader on the field. And then we brought in guys like Sam from Deakin in State Div 5. He's come across that, just a natural general in the midfield. And, the list goes on. We've probably brought in 7 or 8 players. We've brought in Armin, travels all the way from Hoppers Crossing every week. Comes
wow.
With a background in futsal, but he brings that experience in close that we really needed. So we've got that young team coming through, which I'm lucky to inherit. But we've also brought in a lot of young, experienced players to make us a very strong team.
Well, I mean, from what you've just said, it sounds like a Division 1 team, not a Division 2 team. So obviously with that come then the expectations as well. No doubt you put quite high expectations on yourself, but naturally on the team as well. What about the club? Has the club really set the expectations high and said we need to get back to Division 1 ASAP?
No, the club's just been supportive, and anything that I've brought up or suggested, the club's really backed me with. I've thrown out some crazy ideas, and they've jumped on board with that, especially around the fitness side of it. But we are a Div 1 team playing in Div 2. I don't think last year the results reflect the potential of this club. We've brought in the players now. The club supports me, but I'm not going to shy away from anything less than promotion. For me as a coach will be a failure this year, and that's where I set the bar. So we will be, I'll say now, Div 1 following year.
Well, that's the plan as far as the Breakwater Eagles is concerned. Steve, any last questions for our guest tonight?
Just on the facilities down at the White Eagle House, what did you make of those when you arrived at the club? Both the playing surfaces and I guess the off-field facilities as well. And are you possibly at the club now in the background there?
Yes, I am at the club. The boys are out training at the moment, so I'll go and make sure they're training hard. The facilities here are good. The pitch gets a lot of use with two men's teams using the one pitch, then the women's, and then the juniors as well on that one pitch. It does get a lot of use. So probably one benefit of the break is that's been able to get a little bit better. The rest here, the change rooms they're pretty old. We do need a bit of funding to bring all that up. But you can't argue with the fact that you have the Polish club here that gives so much to run this club without having to pay for water, lights, with everything maintained. That's just fantastic.
Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on board. We really thank you for taking some time out and getting to know a club like Breakwater Eagles. And look, I for one am really excited about the local community league season this year. I think all three men's divisions and all 2 or 3 women's divisions are going to be exciting in their own way. So we certainly look forward to watching how a rejuvenated Breakwater Eagles performs this year under the helm of yourself, Dan.
Thanks, guys. It's going to be an exciting season, and I'd suggest everyone come down and watch as many games as possible because we'll play some pretty good football.
Bring it on, I say. Bring it on.
Dan.
Good on you, Dan Shaw, the coach of the senior men's team at the Breakwater Eagles Soccer Club. Very nice of Dan to join us. Mate, we're almost out of time. It's been a huge show. It's been a great show. Look, for me, it was really fascinating because as you said, it's one of those clubs we don't really know too much about. And I know I've had friends that have played at Breakwater Eagles over the years and always used to have a great time going there and then afterwards grabbing a beer or a soft drink or Gatorade at the White Eagle Club next door. But yeah, you'd always be assured of a tough fight on the field, but afterwards it was always always quite jovial, always quite social, and a lot of fun and games. So good to see a club like Breakwater Eagles that has fallen on tough times in recent years, getting back up there. Mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Big thanks to Jim and Dan for joining us tonight. It was, I really enjoyed hearing all about it, and it was, quite refreshing to hear some good stuff coming out of Fellmongers Road, the White Eagle House there. And when you think about it as well, Tonchi, if they can, eventually get the funding for the upgrade of their facilities, they've got good coaching structure in place. There's a huge catchment area down there with not so many clubs. Like the only really clubs nearby, I guess you've sort of got Barwon in one direction, maybe Leopold in the other, maybe Deakin as well is there, but that's not a junior setup. So, and then Armstrong United a bit further. So yeah, they've sort of like got that space down there where they could return to being a power club in the juniors and the seniors if a few things go their way and they keep making positive steps forward.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Look, we've got a couple of comments about the Eagles. Corey Hall says, up the Eagles. Now, Emily Shaw, with a name like that or a surname like that, I think she must be
Any
quite
relation?
parochial. I think so. She says, should have asked Dan about his daughter, Ashley. She's extremely talented. He did mention Ashley, didn't he? But
He
there we
did,
go.
yeah.
Do I dare say that Emily is Mrs. Shaw? But thank you for everyone that's joining on the has joined the broadcast. Hamish Homer says, hi, Tyler. In relation to Tyler, I'm going to get this wrong. I know I'm going to get this wrong. Stenovita. I'm going to give up. But Tyler is the secretary of Breakwater Eagles. I'm going to make a big shout out because he was quite instrumental in putting together, getting tonight's show together. Mate, do you realise Tyler is probably, without doubt, the youngest secretary in the Geelong region? He's only 18 years of age and he's a secretary of a club. How good is that?
Oh, that's crazy. I dare say he might be the youngest secretary of a football club in Victoria, if not maybe Australia-wide.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. And it is good to see not only on the park, on the field, that players, young players or young people are getting an opportunity, but it's also good to see off the field in the boardroom as well. Apologies to Emily Shaw. She is not Mrs. Shaw. She's Miss Shaw. She's the other daughter, as she says it. Oh, don't consider yourself the other daughter, Emily. We're all equal. But yeah, but look, it is great to see some of the things and some of the positivity that is happening down at Breakwater Eagles. I wish the Eagles and I wish everyone associated with the Breakwater Eagles the very, very, very best for season 2020. And mate, this time next week, who knows? Who knows what the future holds? We could have some lots of interesting news and even more developments. So we look forward to the next few weeks with bated breath. In the meantime, if you cannot wait till next Tuesday to get your full football fix, join us every Thursday night for the Football Out West show on the Football Out West News Facebook page from 7 p.m. streamed live. And before we go, Steve, very, very important. We want as many people out there to sign up on the YouTube page, to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also to become a member. Of the football of the Geelong Region Soccer Show. So please, we want you to get out and about.
That's right. The more people, the better content we can produce for you and keep the show going.
Yeah, absolutely. On that note, thank you very, very, very much for joining us. It has been an absolute pleasure. It's episode 43, and we certainly thank you once again for joining us. Don't forget, next Tuesday at 6 p.m. we'll be back again. Until then, good night.
Good night.